Hey everybody, my name is Adam, and in this series of videos, I'm trying to bring you the best advice that I've got, the top things that I've learned over the last 20 years in full-time student ministry. And the one I want to talk about today is huge. Now I know that you guys who watch all these, you're like, come on Adam, you think all of these are huge. Well yeah, they're my top 20 things, and they're all a really big deal, but today's is so critical, it's so important. I want to talk to you about the absolute critical importance of small groups for your student ministry. No, don't tune me out. Don't turn this off. Don't click off. I know everybody's talking about small groups. It's the talk of every town, but I'm telling you, this is one of these things that if you would just give me 3 minutes to try to convince you why these must be the center of your strategy for youth ministry, then I'll stop talking. But this is so critical, and it's one of those things that over the years, I've gradually become to believe more and more and more and more the value and absolute importance of small groups as far as the vehicle for caring for and discipling young people. I'm absolutely convinced that small groups is the best vehicle that we've got available to us to disciple students. See, I've always had small groups as a part of the different student ministries that I've run, but what I'd like to propose to you today is that small groups are not just a part of your student ministry, but they are like the main thing, that everything in your student ministry revolves around small groups. Now don't comment things. It should revolve around Jesus. Of course, it should revolve around Jesus, but strategically and structurally and how you're going to carry out leading kids towards Jesus, I believe it should be through small groups. Why? This is what Jesus did. First of all, Jesus had a small group. He had 12 guys. One of them went bad, so 11 out of 12 is what Jesus had. And so I'm thinking we are fools if we think that we can effectively disciple more than 12 kids. But let's be honest, many youth pastors out there are attempting to disciple far more than 12 kids. Maybe they're trying to do 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 guys. That will not work in the long run. You'll do a great job with a couple and not a great job with all of the rest. I'm telling you guys, this is what will happen. This is what happens over and over and over again. But imagine if you are only trying to care for like 4 or 5 kids. Like you could probably do a great job at caring for 4 or 5 kids. And then so-and-so that one of your youth leaders can care for 4 or 5. And this other girl, she can care for 4 or 5. And this other dude, he can care for 4 or 5. Well, watch this. If you have a bunch of adults that all just can do a great job at really caring for 4 or 5 students, pointing them towards Jesus, getting their back, loving them, being in their corner, leading them spiritually, then all of a sudden you can have hundreds and hundreds of students who have somebody who actually knows them, who actually cares about them, who's actually investing in their life on the level that you would want to. See, let's say I had 1,000 kids in my student ministry. I don't, but let's say I had 1,000 kids. I genuinely care for all of them, but I cannot care for all of them in the level that I want to. I can care for like 4 or 5 the level that I want to. And so what I need to do is build a team of leaders who can all care for 4 or 5 kids, and then pretty soon, boom, we can care for hundreds on a real and authentic level. The best way that I know to pull that off is through small groups. You may already be convinced and you're all in, you don't even need to watch this video, but for me, it took a while to convince me because if I'm honest, now I would never have admitted this, but if I'm honest, in my early days of youth ministry, I liked having like the big thing. The large group gathering was the main focus, and where we had worship and the teaching and the games and the hype and the fun and like all of it. And I kind of liked it when kids would come to me as their pastor, the one, if a kid needed prayer, if a kid needed advice, if a kid had questions, if a kid needed to be cared for in any way. I liked it when they would come up to me like, Adam, you said this, God really used you to speak to me, blah, blah, blah. Can you pray for me about this or about that? I love that. But when you shift to a small groups centered youth ministry, what happens is that focus turns off of you as the youth pastor and onto the small group leader, where now the kids are going to their small group leaders for prayer, for advice, for care, for all that kind of stuff. They'll still come to the lead youth pastor, I guess, but the goal would be that you set up your small group leaders are now the heroes of your ministry, not the youth pastor, not you. Of course, Jesus is the hero. We're trying to point kids at Jesus, but in human terms, who are they going to come to? Are they going to come to you? And are you going to be the one who does all the like real spiritual deep work, or is it going to be your small group leaders? Guys, imagine this scenario. Powerful night, God is moving, like 10 kids, let's say you have 50 kids in your student ministry, like 10 of them come up at the end. Maybe they've been moved by God, they want to talk to you, they want to tell you, maybe they want you to pray for them, maybe they have a question about something. There's 10 of them lined up. And you're sitting there, you're talking to one, the next one comes. Well, the second girl, she's one of the girls that just talks and talks and talks and talks. And so what happens is, like 5 of those 10 kids, they're just like, this has never happened. I'll talk to Adam later. They all leave. They go home because their rides are here. And long story short, none of them ever like bring up one of them was about to like say, hey, I think I'm ready to trust Christ, but they don't do it because they're waiting in line. And you end up talking to 3 kids out of 10. Well, what if all those 10 kids, instead of coming to you, they all had one small group leader who they all went and talked to their small group leader because there was only one. Every small group leader gave that kid all the attention that they needed, the care that they needed. And then afterwards, they called you because you're like the expert, right? And they're like, hey, I got this situation, I need your advice. Hey, I got this question, I need your biblical knowledge. And you were able to coach that small group leader and that small group leader, but through your small group leaders, all 10 of those kids got cared for really, really well, which if you were the one they all had to come to, only a couple of them would have been cared for. Listen, I could go on and on and on of the value and absolute importance of having a small group centered student ministry. I don't want this video to take forever, so I'm going to do a part 2 to get into all the practicals of it. But let me just say this. I believe that if you will structure and strategize your youth ministry in such a way that small groups are at the center. It's like your trips revolve around small groups, your nights revolve around small groups, your events revolve around small groups. It's a big change, at least it was for me, but it's significant, and I believe it'll be more effective, it'll be more sustainable, and more scalable. A small group centered youth ministry model, I believe, is more effective at caring for kids, at discipling kids, more sustainable because you have leaders who are only trying to invest in 4 or 5 kids rather than you trying to invest in 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and it's more scalable. I believe you could reach thousands of kids this way and actually disciple them in an authentic way. You'll never do that if it's just you trying to be the hero, youth pastor, rockstar. So just imagine with me, and in the next video we'll get into all the practicals of what this looks like. Imagine with me for a second if your youth ministry was revolving around small groups, like your big camps and retreats. Like what if the thinking, like the big thing of that was the small group time, not the large group time. Think of your trips. What if they revolved around small groups, not big groups? Think of your big events, like the fun things that you do, the social things, like the bowling things and the laser tag things and the overnight things. What if those were all small group centered rather than large group centered? Yes, there's a place for the big group. Yes, there's a place for the hype. There's huge value in that with teenagers. I'm all about that. But what if primarily your model of youth ministry was small groups focused? I think it could be a game changer for you. It's been a game changer for me. So let's reach hundreds of kids, thousands of kids. I don't know, but let's do it by getting them in small groups of 4, 5, 6, 7 at a time. Think about it, pray about it. I believe that if you will make small groups more important than they already are in your student ministry, you cannot lose. There's a lot that goes into that. There's huge implications for that, but I'm convinced that small groups and a small group centered strategy and model for youth ministry is the most effective way to reach and disciple this generation of students. Part 2 coming soon. Thanks for watching. Now go text your small group. Peace.